small businesses and veterans and schools and whatnot. If we let all these businesses shut down, that would be a far worse outcome than just passing the package.
I agree. I don't think we're going to agree on this. I mean, I would say that pumping money into an economy, no matter what the circumstances, is inflationary in nature. And sometimes it's appropriate, other times it's not appropriate. I don't think at that time it was appropriate, and it exacerbated inflation. I guess we won't agree on that. But I guess here's another question, though. Let's put that aside for a second. You're saying that the reason that it was done was because, right, these mom and pop shops or whomever needed it.
Yeah.
Because they couldn't go back, right?
Well, and just everyday Americans, yes.
Yeah, every American. At that point in time, when we had a vaccine, could we have not opened up back the economy?
But the economy wasn't shut down by the federal government. This was like a state decision. States made this decision.
That's
but
true.
Also, even companies that opened up were still not experiencing rates of business that they needed to stay open, because a lot of people were still not going outside in the way that they used to. And especially in winter, in the middle of a huge wave of COVID, people were still inside and not going out anyway. So it wasn't a matter of like, oh, big bad Joe Biden is keeping the economy closed. It's like, no, this was just a natural repercussion of COVID, and nobody was participating in the economy anyway.
But
so
if I recall, he wasn't really calling for the economy to be opened back up. I mean, I remember governors in states like governors like Ron DeSantis in Florida, he was opening his economy back up. He was getting rid of his like social distancing mandates, and people were coming after him for that. They were calling him a killer. They were saying all sorts of things about him. I don't think that Joe Biden was on the other side of that narrative. I don't think that Joe Biden was saying, we should open back up. We should get rid of these social distancing policies. So,
well, Joe Biden is the president of the United States. He's not in control of like social distance policy in Florida. But in Florida, their death rate was higher per capita than other comparable states. So by doing that in Florida, he very likely led to the unnecessary deaths of thousands of people, which I don't think is a good thing.
You think it was the social distancing at that point in time was?
Well, yeah. I mean, if you're just saying like, screw all the guidelines, screw all the science, screw all the recommendations. Let's just like go at it. Let's just pretend like nothing's going on and get out there. If you don't have a vaccine, it's fine. It's fine. No problem. Yeah. That's obviously going to lead to more people dying.
Okay. Yeah. So you thought that was the correct call?
Well, I think that, no, I don't think that what DeSantis did was right. I thought DeSantis opened too quickly.
That's the correct. Sorry. Let me specify. You think the correct call was social distancing at the point in time when Joe Biden was inaugurated, when we had the vaccine?
Because again, there was still there was a new wave of COVID hitting the United States. So we still needed safety measures for folks then. And Ron DeSantis, a lot of people ignored that, and it led to thousands of people dying.
Well, who were these people that were dying? Like, what were their demographics?
People, I don't know. What do you ask?
What were their demographics? Like, were they old? Were they young? Were they fit?
The majority of people affected by, or the people overwhelmingly affected by COVID, were people with comorbidities, or pre-existing conditions, basically, or older people, things like that. Is that maybe that answers your question?
Yeah, I mean, so you don't think a policy where it's something along the lines of, if you are especially susceptible,
no.
Feel free to. No, you don't think that
people make that decision. People make that decision regardless. There's no policy where you can say, we're like, if you're old, you can't go outside. If you're young, you can go outside. There's no policy. You can't do that, right? That's already a thing.
No, I'm not saying.
But the policy across the board is that just generally, the government should have a limited role in this, but that, we should have restrictions in place. Like, you have to wear a mask in certain places. You have to, social distance is advised and whatnot. That is good policy. In the midst of a pandemic, that's a good policy. Shout out to everybody coming from Dean and Parker. I appreciate y'all.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's a bad policy per se, but I'm just saying, I'm mostly talking about return to work, like return to the office, like a mechanic who needs to be in his office, or a waitress who needs to be in the restaurant serving people. Yeah. And we were continuing that, you can't go to the restaurant, like the restaurants have to be closed down. You can't go to the hair salon has to be closed down. We were continuing that at that point in time. When you don't think we could have opened it back up?
No.
And said, if you feel healthy, if you're a young 20-year-old like yourself, healthy person, that you can go out, you can go to the restaurant, you don't think that would have been appropriate?
I mean,
people
There
at
was
that
no
age
policy
range weren't-
saying that you couldn't go to a restaurant. That's the thing. You keep saying that
was?
everybody was banned from going to restaurants. There was no
me-
state policy. There was no state policy saying that you could not go to restaurants. You could still go to restaurants if they were open. But
At
the
what
point
level
is
were
that
the
they
policies?
weren't. The point
At
is
what
that
level were
these
the policies?
what's that?
You're saying that there was no policies whatsoever that barred people from entering like closed spaces like restaurants, salons, that they had to
No,
be
there
shut
was
down.
no. I mean, there was no policy saying you couldn't leave your house.
No, I'm not talking about you can't leave your house, but like I can't go to the like if I'm a woman, I want to go get my hair done. I can't do that because you're not allowed to be in a room of like a closed room with that many people. Like there were no policies that were like
A
preventing.
lot of these policies that you're referencing were set by these businesses themselves. So maybe the state had a policy of like, oh, masks are required here and things like that. But there was no police officer saying, well, you guys aren't 6 feet. You can't be here, right? There was nobody regulating that. That was
Really?
mostly a decision of private businesses on an individual level doing this. That wasn't the government. That wasn't the federal government.
So it was only private businesses that were deciding.
No. There was certain regulation. Again, we're talking very broadly. It's hard to talk very broadly when this was more of a state policy issue. So like states were deciding this policy as opposed to the federal government. So we'd have to talk about a specific state and their policy. But very broadly, a lot of private businesses were making these decisions for themselves.
Okay. I mean, I just remember because I remember like, I mean, we're getting a little off track here, but I remember like a little while ago during that whole time, like Lori Lightfoot, the mayor of Chicago, she had gotten in trouble for going to get like her hair done while apparently there was some type of shutdown. And like it was kind of a little bit of a scandal. Do you remember that or?
No, I don't. I don't recall.
okay.
I take your word for it, but I don't recall.
I mean,
that
yeah,
specifically.
the reason I bring it up is because the reason it was a scandal is because in the city of Chicago, people were not allowed to do that. Like it was kind of like a rule for thee, not for me situation where she was able to go get her hair done in the salon, but other people weren't allowed to do that, that there was some sort of policy either by the city or by the state or somebody that prevented that. I don't think it was just an election of the businesses themselves. But I mean,
that's why I'm speaking like very
referencing an
broadly. So
obscure-
like,
yeah.
a lot of individual jurisdictions set certain laws. I don't know what Chicago's law was during COVID, so I have no idea. But a lot of individual jurisdictions on like a very specific level, like city level, set their own regulations. So New York City had different regulation than like Tuscaloosa, Alabama, right? And about Alabama generally. But you're speaking on a very specific level, not like a state level. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. All right. All right.
So-
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. Maybe we could switch gears because it's not just the economy. I don't think that we're going to really agree on that. I mean,
Well, you also
we
said
kinda-
that on the world stage.
Yeah,
I'm just
yeah,
curious.
exactly, yeah.
I'll make this one quick, but I'm just curious. You said on the world stage we were better. What do you mean by that?
Yeah. So, I mean, I just feel like things are a lot more chaotic now than they were. I feel like when Trump was in office, we didn't really have any new wars that we were involved in, any new conflicts. I think actually things were becoming more peaceful. Like in the Middle East, for example, I think that peace agreements were being signed with Israel, with other countries that historically haven't had peaceful agreements with Israel. And now we're in a situation where Putin's in the Ukraine and obviously everything with October 7th and the war that's currently going on in the Middle East and all the things of that nature. I just think things are more chaotic now than they were. And the withdrawal from Afghanistan, I thought that was pretty terrible. In particular, I thought that was really bad, the withdrawal from Afghanistan.
So the withdrawal from Afghanistan was initiated by Donald Trump, and the plan that Joe Biden followed was Donald Trump's plan. This plan has been blamed by former Trump advisors and the Inspector General of the United States, who's nonpartisan, for the reason that the Afghanistan withdrawal was so messy. It was called the Doha Accords. It was signed by Donald Trump and the Taliban, and as part of that deal, 5,000 Taliban prisoners got released, which isn't great, not good. So I just wanted to quickly touch on that. But also to say that like the United States wasn't involved in conflict and things were peaceful is just like, I got to be honest, complete nonsense. Like Donald Trump increased drone strikes 450% from Obama, who many people regard as a very drone heavy president. Innocent deaths in Afghanistan increased 330% from 2016 onward. Donald Trump himself also said he dropped the quote mother of all bombs on Afghanistan. We bombed Syria, we bombed Yemen, we bombed Somalia. Iran attacked us under Donald Trump. Iran attacked oil refineries in Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia is an ally of ours in the Middle East. And in context of like between Israel and Gaza, there was still conflict going on in 2019. There was a huge skirmish where there were protests along the border that were taking place in Gaza. IDF soldiers, opened fire on these people during a back and forth. Some people died. So this was still very much active conflict going on between all these countries in the Middle East. There was no peace under Donald Trump. It's just like Trump lies about this stuff and says, oh, there was nothing going on. But if you have a knowledge of like what's taking place around the world, you know that also in Russia and Ukraine, that war was still going on. It didn't just begin with Russia invading in Ukraine in 2022. They took Crimea and the Donbass in 2014, and there was still fighting taking place in those regions as well.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'll just touch on Afghanistan again real quick. So, I mean, you said that it was Trump's plan.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
But Biden executed the plan. So whose fault is it? The guy that made the plan or the guy that carries out the plan?
The guy that made the plan, because Joe Biden can't just get rid of the plan when he becomes president.
Why?
Because the plan was not signed with Donald Trump. The plan was signed with the United States of America.
If he's the president, he's the president.
The options here for Joe Biden, he talked about this at a press conference he had regarding the Afghanistan withdrawal. The options that he was given by his generals was, hey, we can continue with this plan and go forward with the withdrawal from Afghanistan, or alternatively, we can abandon this deal and then put tens of thousands more of American troops back into Afghanistan to defend ourselves when the ceasefire with the Taliban expires. Joe Biden said, well, I'm not putting any more Americans back into harm's way in Afghanistan. Let's get out. Let's bring the troops home, even if the plan is not a great one. Because remember, the plan is not with Donald Trump. The plan is with the United States of America. Joe Biden at the time is the leader of the United States of America. But he can't just be like, yeah, I don't really like this deal anymore, so I'm just going to switch it. Right?
When was the pullout? Do you know? I don't know off the top of my head.
The pullout was the summer of 2021.
All right, so like pretty soon after he took office.
Yeah, I mean, not 4, 5, 6 months after.
All right, I'll give him credit that that's not a lot of time, but I will say, like, if you're the president of the United States and there's a bad plan, and you know it's a bad plan, you're still going to do it just because, like, you don't, like, there was no way that he could have improved upon that situation.
Yeah, I mean, the plan was already in motion. I think it was like 5 days before Joe Biden was inaugurated. The United States the State Department, I should say, announced that our troop presence in Afghanistan decreased to around 2,500 troops, which was a significant decrease from what it was, obviously historically, but in recent months as well. So the plan was already in motion. That was part of the plan, the gradual withdrawal from Afghanistan. So it was already in motion by the time that Joe Biden took office. It would have been virtually impossible for him to just reverse and change course, and also virtually impossible to negotiate a new deal with the Taliban.
Why not?
Because why would the Taliban agree to that?
For the United States of America.
Why would the Taliban agree?
Because we're the United States of America. Because we have all the power.
The Taliban has fought us for a very long time. So? They've killed a lot of Americans for a very long time.
I mean, I'll concede the point with you that I don't know why Donald Trump was negotiating with the Taliban in the first place. I'll concede that sounds like nonsense to me. And that kind of supports what I'm about to say just right now, is that we're the United States, they're the Taliban. If I'm Joe Biden and I'm the president and I don't like this deal and I think it's a bad deal, I have no obligation to carry forward with this deal with the Taliban. I'm going to renegotiate. And if they want to say no, then they're going to have to face the consequences, because we have all the power. They don't have the power. We have the power.
Do you know what? If we didn't follow through with the deal with the Taliban, they would have opened fire on Americans again. The ceasefire that we had with them would have expired. There was no American, I don't believe, that died in 2020 in Afghanistan as a result of this deal, because the Taliban agreed to not fire on Americans.
I thought you said the withdrawal was in 2021.
Yeah, the withdrawal was in 2021. The deal was negotiated in 2020. Okay. And signed in 2020, in February of 2020.
Okay.
So if we didn't follow through with the plan,
died during the pullout. Americans died during the pullout.
Yes, and that was terrible. But if we didn't follow through with the plan and we just said, you know what, screw you, Taliban, deals off the table, the ceasefire would have immediately expired, and all the Americans that were still in the Middle East and Afghanistan would have been targets for the Taliban and their subsequent groups and allies. What's up, Jillian? I mean, and their subsequent groups and allies.
Works, so when you're saying the other way too, doesn't it? I mean, why do we have to be so afraid of the Taliban? I agree that it's not ideal that they'd be targeting us, but I think that they should be more afraid of us targeting them than them targeting us.
Yeah, they're definitely. We certainly have more power than the Taliban.
And
but
so that gives
war and
us
conflict is not
negotiating
always. War and conflict is not always just a matter of who is more powerful. You see it in conflicts all the time. Like, for example, Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Russia is a significantly bigger army and power than Ukraine. But 2 to almost 3 years into this war, Russia and the front lines are stalled, and Russia is losing thousands of troops a day. War and warfare is incredibly complex. It's not always just a, we're more powerful, we take you over. So just because the United States has significantly more power than Afghan and then the Taliban doesn't mean that we can just like wipe them out and be like, well, you know, you guys were mean to us, so we're going to wipe you out. And also, hold on. Even if the thought is, yeah, we're more powerful than the Taliban, we can wipe them out. I don't disagree that we're more powerful than the Taliban, but in the process of that, Americans would still be losing their lives. I'm not comfortable, and Joe Biden was not comfortable with delivering more body bags to parents in the United States because we decided, you know what, this deal is just bad. We're going to pull out and throw more troops into the Afghanistan.
But what you're saying, I don't even understand what you're saying, because that's what happened. He did deliver more body bags to families in the United States.
But that was not
as a result of the pullout.
That was not the result of the Taliban.
It was a result of the pullout.
Yeah, exactly. An ISIS-K group targeted the base and killed a bunch of innocent people, killed a bunch of American soldiers.
Yeah.
But the point is that if we would have continued to remain in Afghanistan and put more troops there, more people would have died.
I'm not saying we had to remain in. I'm just saying if it was such a bad plan, he should have renegotiated the plan. Like, let's just look at it in the context of the situation. It's
not as like, I think foreign policy in terms of its complexity is the most difficult thing to explain to people, because it sounds so easy to just say, well, you should just renegotiate the deal. You should just like renegotiate it. But foreign policy never works that way. It's never just, well, just renegotiate the deal. It's not that simple.
Rather than renegotiate, the president of the United States should have his hands tied to a deal that he knows
Trump tied his hands.
Trump
tied his hands.
Trump tied his hands. You think?
Yes, Trump tied his hands. Yes, with a bad deal.
Joe Biden suddenly cares about Joe Biden's deal or about Donald Trump's deal.
The deal, of course he cares about the deal because he's the president of the United States.
So he can't change the deal, even though he's the president.
It's not a business deal. It's not where you can just be like, oh, we're going to renegotiate this business deal. It's not a business deal.
I'm not saying it is. I'm just saying.
But you're acting as if, oh, we can just renegotiate. Foreign policy, especially when you're negotiating with a terrorist group, is not that easy. And yes, Donald Trump tied Joe Biden's hands. As I just mentioned to you before, when Joe Biden was talking about this withdrawal at the time, he was told by his generals that we have two options. Either we go ahead with the deal, or we deploy tens of thousands of troops back into Afghanistan to protect ourselves from the Taliban. Joe Biden had those two options. There was no just let's renegotiate the deal. The Taliban was not interested in renegotiating the deal.
All right, then we make them interested. We have leverage over them. We have more firepower over them. I don't understand. Like you're acting like we are like equal entities here. I feel like we're like equal entities here. I'm not. First of all, the leverage.
Oh my god, I'm not arguing that the United States and the Taliban are equal in terms of firepower, but you also have to remember that our entire military was not in Afghanistan. We had 25 at the time that Joe Biden took office. We had 2,500 troops in Afghanistan. Those people could have easily been targeted by the Taliban if the United States decided to say, hey, we're getting out of this deal. And then deployment takes time. Getting tens of thousands more American troops over there takes time. And again, you're just saying that now you're comfortable with redeploying tens of thousands of American troops back into Afghanistan and putting their lives in harm's way. Remember, from our time being in Afghanistan, we've had thousands of American troops die. Joe Biden didn't want another one as a result of a stupid conflict that we didn't have to be in at that time. He
did get another one, didn't he, though? Because what you're saying, that in the interest of not having troops die, we can't renegotiate. We have to go with this bad plan that resulted in the death of troops.
The death of troops, the death of those 13 American soldiers is tragic. Those people are heroes for serving in our military and going over there and executing that withdrawal. But it's a matter of 13 versus possibly hundreds or thousands.
But you know what's kind of interesting about that, just a little point right there, is that I think I remember in the debate that Joe Biden had with Donald Trump, he claimed that nobody died under his watch as president. I think he forgot about those guys, didn't he? Those heroes.
No, I don't think that Joe Biden forgot about those people. What he was saying is that there are no more Americans in active conflict. Right now, for the first time this century, the United States is not at war. Well, that's what Joe Biden was saying. I agree that he misspoke, But the ironic thing, which is kind of like a very sad irony, is Donald Trump loves to pick on Joe Biden for saying that, but Donald Trump himself has never acknowledged the 65 American troops who died under him under his 4 years. Under Joe Biden, there's only been around 16 American troops who have died in conflict, whereas Donald Trump, he had 65. There were significantly more troops that died under Donald Trump. He never talks about those people. He never mentions those people. And that's also speaking to the argument that, things were more peaceful under Donald Trump when more Americans were dying abroad under Donald Trump.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, no, that's a fair point. I mean, I shouldn't even bring that up because I don't like going after people because of gaffes. So, like, that's just bullshit at the end of the day. It doesn't really matter.
I would agree.
But, I mean, I would say, but you don't think that in the 4 years that, I don't know. Do I have much more time? I don't want to, like, take up all your time.
You can make one final point. We can go back and forth.
I was just going to say, I guess, in summary, that the 4 years that Trump was president, you listed off, like, a whole list of things. But you don't agree, even if it wasn't necessarily Biden or Trump's fault, that things were a bit more peaceful during those 4 years than they were the past 4 years.
No, I think that there was conflict in different ways. I think there was still conflict, but it just took different forms. And it's also important to note that, like, I don't even agree with the premise of the question or the framing of the question, because it's almost like you're framing it as such as like, the American president somehow dictates what conflicts does and don't exist around the world, which in reality, the president of the United States doesn't. So you would say that, there was far more conflict around the world under FDR with World War II than there was with presidents subsequent, like Eisenhower, for example. But that conflict in World War II was not because of FDR. So you could say, things were more peaceful under Eisenhower than FDR. It must mean Eisenhower's a better president. But they have no control over what conflict takes place around the world and what countries decide to do things. Russia invading Ukraine had nothing to do with Joe Biden being president and Donald Trump not being president.
Okay. I guess just one last thing.
Sure.
Like, do you understand, like, I'm just wondering, because you think we're not agreeing here, which I think was expected, but do you understand how people like me could have the facts presented to them, kind of like how I've laid out, and draw these conclusions? Like, does it make sense to you that somebody might see the facts in these ways and think that Donald Trump is better than Biden or Harris?
Yes, I totally see how, like, somebody who doesn't study politics could be misinformed. The reason I say that is because Donald Trump and the Republican Party have invested a lot of money in misinforming people. So if you're just like a average, like, I don't know how old you are, like if you're just like an average, like 22-year-old and you're scrolling on social media, you don't know much about politics, and you see all of these like Republican accounts saying, Joe Biden was disastrous in Afghanistan. Joe Biden's responsible for inflation. It's very easy to fall into that trap of, like, these people are right. They have a nice studio that they're speaking in. The microphone, the lighting looks so nice. They must be very professional. But it's not the case. So I understand how, like, young people and people generally can fall into that trap, but it's also on us to do the research, right? And find out that, these Republicans are actually lying. They're not being honest about this. And the facts are contrary to what they're saying. So I also believe that there's a media crisis going on right now in the sense that, like, people are getting their information from unreliable sources. So anyway, I could speak about that for longer, but I understand how somebody can come to these conclusions, but it's still not right.
All right. Well, I don't want to take up any more of your time. Thank you for having me. It was good talking to you.
Yeah, no problem, Hugh. You're welcome back anytime, all right?
Thanks a lot. See you, man.
Thanks, man. Peace. Yeah, man. I mean, and now with TikTok possibly getting banned, it's like, we need forums to educate people. And if we don't have like TikTok, for example, it's like makes it even harder. But anyway, Tammy, thanks for the $20. I'm so worried about our country because of your generation in this election, but you give me hope. Keep educating. Yeah, the Gen Z vote was surprising for me too, but we'll bounce back. We're going to keep educating young people and build from that. Susan, thank you for the $50. My God, on Venmo. I appreciate it so much, Susan. Drop some W's for Susan in the chat. At least 50 of them for Susan. I appreciate you so much. What's up, Jillian? Again, she says, for your patience. I appreciate that. Thank you, Susan. That's incredibly kind. Incredibly kind. Megan, thanks for the $10. We had already lost our bargaining power. The 5K Taliban was back in Afghanistan, and Trump prematurely pulled out the majority of our forces. So we were essentially defenseless when Biden took office. Exactly. We didn't have that leverage, right? We didn't have leverage. Jill, thanks for the $5. My surgery went well. Sorry you were pulled off last night. Roll Tide. I'm glad your surgery went well. and I'm glad that you're back. I hope the recovery's now going well. That's amazing. Ali, thanks for the $1. Here for Harry. No, we want Simba. Love you though. He's not here, unfortunately. He's not here, but he's doing well. Genesis, thanks for the $3. Thank you for helping educate people. Genesis, thank you for being here. I appreciate you so much. I hope you know that. And Shakayla, thanks for the $1.11. I appreciate you. Hope you're having a good night. I hope you're having a good night too. Amber, thanks for the $2. Saying sorry I couldn't send more. Amber, please don't apologize. The fact that you're just here and watching means more than you know. So I appreciate you. Thank you so much. Bug, thanks for the $10. Love you, Harry. Hope you're doing well tonight. Bug, I hope you're doing well. And Koi, thanks for the 5 gifted subs. I appreciate you. Bug, hope you're doing well. And Jenna, Harry, do you like black women? Yes. I don't. Yeah. I don't really. Yes. I don't know how to answer that. Listen, if you're hello.
I'm a job application. Did I scare?
If you're MAGA, let me know in the chat. I'll bring you up. Also, drop a follow if you haven't already. We do these lives all the time. Venmo, Cash App in the link in the bio if you want to support the live. And also double tap the screen. Let's try to get to 200,000 likes. Help boost the live and all that good stuff. Sorry, I wasn't. I just like checked out for a second there. My apologies. All right, if you're MAGA, let me know in the. Hold on. This guy's bio. Let's get this guy in here. But if you are MAGA, remember, we're trying to get to everybody. Hello?
Hey, what's up, man? How you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. If you could educate me a tad on how was your personal financial situation on Trump's first go?
Vastly different than it is now because I'm 22 now. And then when Trump was elected, I was like 13 or I was 14, maybe 13. So I wasn't like, being an adult.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Thanks for that. Are you aware of what the prefrontal cortex is responsible for?
Yeah. Decision making and logic. Yeah.
Okay. How old are you?
22.
Cool.
Do you have an objection? Do you think like I can't be logical at this point?
No.
So then what's the point that you're making here?
Your experience, your on-the-job training.
What was that?
Trying to get your experience, your on-the-job training.
So how does like a conversation about the makeup of the brain connect to that?
You already answered it, Harry.
So do you have like an actual argument to make or no?
No. Just proving that you are nothing more than clickbait.
Oh, well then if my prefrontal cortex is underdeveloped to the point where I can't be logical and I can't have rational decision making, then you surely should be able to destroy me in a debate. So why don't we do it? Why don't you tell me why you support Donald Trump and we can go back and forth and we can see if my little brain is not developed enough to have the conversation. Sound good to you?
Yeah, let's do it.
Great. So why did you vote for Donald Trump?
Because he's looking to get rid of all the illegals.
Oh, he's looking to get rid of all the undocumented migrants. What's the benefit in doing that? What's the return on investment there by doing that?
Very, very simple. Jobs.
Cool. So you understand that undocumented people make up around 5% of America's workforce right now, primarily in industries like, excuse me, I'm not done talking. You understand they make up 5% of America's workforce right now, especially in industries like agriculture and infrastructure, making up almost like 50% of these industries in certain states. So you're talking about jobs. Who's going to replace these folks in these jobs almost immediately?
Legal Americans.
Oh, really? So then how do you explain the fact that the American economy is being kept up by immigrants? Older Americans are retiring at faster rates than younger Americans are filling those jobs. You can look at this data at the Department of Labor Statistics if you're interested. And right now, a lot of these immigrants who have come in via asylum or humanitarian parole are helping fill these jobs and keep America's economy afloat and filling crucial aspects of certain industries. So if we deport all of these people, even some legal immigrants and people who are here as American citizens, like Donald Trump said today in an interview, all of these jobs are not going to be filled just like that. And there's going to be huge openings in certain industries that are crucial to America's stability. So where are all these people going to come from?
Are you this upset about it because you're afraid that Parker's girlfriend and her family are going to go bye-bye?
See, here's the funny thing. Here's the exact this. I'm glad that we like settled this quickly into the debate because I just gave you like a detailed analysis of why deporting 11 million. Can you just stop? I promise nobody needs to hear you speak. I promise nobody wants to hear you speak.
That's all
I promise you nobody wants to hear you speak. Nobody needs to hear unintelligence coming from you.
Okay.
In just like a short time in this debate, I gave you a detailed analysis of why deporting all these people that you're talking about is bad. Not only is it inhumane, it's just bad for the economy. And instead of responding with like an educated response based on fact and an analysis of your position, instead you respond with some stupid shit that you just cooked up that you think is so funny. But in reality, it just exhibits how you, a grown-ass man, are paying way too much attention to young men on the internet. And I think that your Trump body pillow is feeling very empty in the bed right now. Maybe you got to go give it a hug and do that instead of making a fool out of yourself online. Does that sound good to you?
All it was just a simple question.
No. Exactly, but it's actually not just a simple question. It details exactly what I was talking about prior to this debate, that you can't actually hang. You can't hang in these conversations. You can't debate Parker. You can't debate Dean. You can't debate Chris because you just are not intellectually on the same level. And so you do stuff like this. You do stuff like this. Like that. Like, oh, are you, instead of responding to my actual argument regarding immigration, you make a stupid comment about Parker and his personal life. You're weird. You're strange. You're strange. You're completely illiterate.
Let's talk about transgenderism then.
No. We're not done talking about immigration.
Okay,
We're not done talking about immigration. We're not done talking about immigration. Please respond to what I actually said if you can. If you can't, if you're not capable, then I understand why you might want to pivot to another social justice topic that you feel so passionate about. But please respond to what I said about immigration.
Easy. Legal Americans.
Okay, so where, I was just talking to you about how the Department of Labor statistics show that native-born Americans, younger Americans, are not filling the roles that older Americans are retiring from. And instead, these roles are being filled by immigrants who are helping keep the economy afloat. If these immigrants weren't fulfilling these jobs, our economy would be significantly weaker than even some of our adversaries around the world, which I don't think you would support. Hopefully not. So then where are all these Americans going to come from? They're not filling jobs.
Well, maybe they'll have to get off of TikTok and actually work.
They're not filling jobs. By the way, the amount of people that are doing things like me or Parker and Dean will not fill these jobs. 5% of America's workforce is not on TikTok.
But why are you so upset about it?
I'm giving you an objection right now. So if you listening ears, go back to second grade, listening ears, you'd see why I and many of the others object to it. There's also an inhumane aspect of this that I haven't even gotten to. But when it comes to the economy, I'm going to be damn upset about it.
Like what? Stop and frisk? What's the objective?
Stop it. What are you talking about? What planet are you living on? Have you read a book ever? What was the last article you read? You read an article today at least, hopefully?
Yes,
no, you haven't. Of course you goddamn haven't. Why would I even ask you? Of course you haven't. Of course you haven't. No, of course you haven't. You don't read. You don't read. I forgot. That's my bad. You don't read. No, not stop and frisk. No, the separation of families, or alternatively, deporting American citizens like Donald Trump advocated for today in his interview with Meet the Press.
American citizens, that's why I was trying to relate. And I asked you about Marge. That's all. I was just trying to relate with you.
Excuse me. Just stop talking. Would you just be quiet? No, American citizens, like if folks come into the country undocumented or they overstay their green card or work visa, and then they have children here in the United States, those children are American citizens. And Donald Trump's response to these children is if their parents get deported, they too get deported. My argument is, what a stupid suggestion. Let's just keep the family here in the United States, give them a pathway to citizenship if they're following the law and working and giving back to their community. There's around 4 million families in the United States that have mixed immigration status, meaning that a person in their family is a native-born American citizen. And instead of even knowing this statistic, instead of knowing the first thing about this, you result to stupid attacks on people's personal lives. It's just embarrassing. I mean, how do you not feel embarrassed by
I was just trying to relate to a big
folks
star
like me with an underdeveloped prefrontal cortex, just like doing stuff to this like you in front of 4,300 people?
I'm just trying to relate. Yeah, I know only 4,300. It used to be up to like 20,000. But anyway,
when did I have 20,000 people in a live stream? What are you talking about?
But anyway, I guess if this is good for you, I don't know.
What are you talking about?
I'm just trying to relate. I'm just trying to relate.
You're not trying to relate anything. You don't know what you're talking about. You don't.
I'm coming here.
You don't know what you're talking about. You
for
don't know what you're
personal
talking about.
experience
You don't know what you're talking about.
financially, and you said you were 13.
You
so
are-
therefore, I had to move on because
My
I didn't
man,
know how
my
old
man,
you were. So
my
I
man,
had to
you're out of
figure it
your
out.
you're out
That's
of your
all.
depth here. You're out of your depth here. You don't know what you're talking about.
But you asked me, how are we going to replace the jobs with
Yeah.
the illegals that are here? And I told you by the legal people that are here. That's all.
Yeah, and I'm telling you that that is stupid because there's not enough legal people that are here to fill these jobs. And then what happens to the 4 million families here with American citizens? Those families get deported. That's more people who aren't going to be able to fill jobs. And those are native-born American citizens, numbnuts.
Do you feel that Donald Trump would honestly attack the anchor babies, we'll call them, first and foremost?
That's what he said. He said again in his
Do
interview
politicians
today.
lie, Harry?
He said in his interview again
politicians lie?
today that he wants to go after every single undocumented
Politicians
migrant.
lie, yes or no?
Oh, wait. So now you're claiming that Trump is lying?
Politicians lie.
Wait.
yes
Now
or
you're
no?
claiming that Trump is lying?
I'll wait.
Is Donald Trump lying?
100%.
So you voted for a person that openly lies to your face?
Did you vote for somebody who openly lied to your face?
Are you saying you vote for somebody who openly has lied to your face?
100%.
God, it's so pathetic. It's so pathetic. The MAGA cult is so pathetic. Do you hear yourself? You're saying like, yeah. Donald Trump has lied to my face. I know it. I don't care. I vote
Let
for
you
him
pick it
anyway.
real quick. Go ahead.
It's terrible. I mean, it's just ridiculous.
Politicians lie is my question to you.
Oh yeah, politicians lie. Yeah, politicians lie.
do you
Except
really feel
we
that
don't
he's
think
gonna
that
go
lying is okay. I'm not of the view that
our
politicians
family
should
over
lie. Hold on, excuse
MS-13?
me. Just stop talking. I'm not of the view that politicians should lie, that it's okay when a politician lies. You are saying, yeah. Donald Trump lies to my face. I know that he lies to my face. I don't care.
So if somebody lies behind your back or to your face, does it matter?
Excuse me? Shut the fuck up and get out. Sorry, I just got a text. Got a text. I had to get him out of there. Had to get him out of there. That was Lester. I had to get him out of there. Don't worry about it. I saw a text. Get out. Just get the hell out. It's too easy. The easiest decision I've ever had to make. Just get out. Just get out of the live. Just be gone. Just be gone. Nobody needs to hear you speak. I promise. Samantha, thanks for the $1. This guy stalks Dean and Parker and has made racist comments about. That's why he's gone. That's why he's no longer here. Eve, thanks for the $5. Staying strong. Also, is there any hope for the election to be recounted? No. I'm having trouble accepting that my hubby voted Cheeto the felon. Yeah. I can imagine that could probably be can be difficult. Megan, thanks for the $7. Psych Pro here. The idea that people under 25 are unable to make logical/good decisions because of their prefrontal cortex is idiotic and a very low level of understanding of brain development. There's not some magic point from 24 to 25 that can suddenly make people make better decisions. Well, that too. He looks at his like development as if it's linear, that if you're under the age of 25, you're, void of making logical decisions. You can't rationalize any of that. But at the minute you become 25, then you're all good. It's nonsense. So I appreciate that, Megan. Thanks for that input there. Expert input. Audrey, thanks for the $1. Since groceries are getting more expensive, just dropping in to remind you I have something better you can eat. Again, Audrey, wasn't expecting that one. I can't even lie. I appreciate you, Audrey. Thanks for the $1. Elijah, thanks for the $1. Can you check DMs, please? I asked a question about Kamala's plan a couple days ago and was wondering if you could get me back on that. Yeah, I can definitely try. Just drop your username. I'll do that. Greg, thanks for the $6 from Sub Greg. Yo, Greg, I appreciate you so much, man. Thank you for being here. Amber, thanks for the $2. And Bug, thanks for the $10. Why are trans people always catching strays? Yeah, that guy. It's their favorite. It's their favorite. Group of people to pick on. It's their favorite group of people to pick on. Anyway, listen, drop a follow if you haven't already. We do these lives all the time. So make sure to drop a follow and follow along, all that good stuff. Jenna says she's MAGA and requested. Where is she? There she is. Drop a follow if you haven't already. Follow along, all that good stuff. It helps boost the account and all that good stuff. Also, double tap the screen. Let's try to get to, hold on. Let's try to get to 300,000 likes, and Venmo, Cash App in the link in my bio and the link tree if you want to support the live. And also with an impending possible TikTok ban, I'm on every social media platform: Instagram, YouTube, Twitter, Snapchat, Blue Sky. All those links are in my bio, point being. All right, Jenna,
Hi.
you voted for Donald Trump?
Yes.
What a disaster. I mean, just what a complete and total disaster. Do you regret it yet or no?
No, and I didn't regret it in 2020. Even though he didn't win, I couldn't vote his first time, but I don't regret it.
So when January 6th happened and you were watching it on the TV, you didn't have a moment of regret, like, man, okay, yeah, maybe it's good that this guy lost.
No.
When he was going through all of his attempts to try to overturn an election he didn't win, and was kept losing in court in front of judges that he appointed, when his own Department of Justice and FBI and Department of Homeland Security, all these different agencies that he had appointed people to, were saying that the election was fair and that what he was doing was wrong. There was no regret there.
No, not really. I mean, I don't know where all those ballots went either. I'm not saying it was rigged or anything, but
They didn't go anywhere.
Are we sure?
They did 100%. Again, all these agencies that I just mentioned looked into it. There were they were led by people appointed by Donald Trump. So unless you think that Donald Trump is appointing corrupt judges, treasonous judges, and treasonous officials to all these agencies, then the election was fair and Donald Trump is just a sore loser, and you voted for him again even after January 6th. When Donald Trump was convicted of 34 felonies, you didn't have any regrets? Wait, hold on. He said peacefully once in his speech. And also in his speech, he said, if you don't fight, you won't have a country anymore. When you see fraud of this levels, you go by different rules. And he directed them to the Capitol, knowing that many of them were armed and that many of them planned violence, because the FBI and his Secret Service briefed them that many of these people wanted to commit acts of violence on January 6th, and they were planning it in group chats on all these different social media sites. So he knew that these groups wanted to be violent, sent them to the Capitol, and he knew that they were armed. So you can say peacefully once.
At the Capitol was violent. There was one person that was killed.
There were also police officers who died subsequently. People took their own lives after. So I would say that the toll as a result of January 6th was higher because a lot of police officers died as a result, or took their lives later.
So what about the rioting and looting that Democrats take part in? What about that?
Please give me an example of looting and rioting that Democrats take part in and are okay with.
I live in Chicago, 2020.
Yeah.
The rioting, the looting. Mm-hmm.
So
kind of peaceful protest as well. I'm not saying January 6th is valid. I'm not saying it was okay, but it's hypocritical for a Democrat to be speaking about.
No, it's not. Because can you name me a single major Democrat who is okay? Like said that, the looting, the violence is fine.
I'm talking about the Democrats as people, not.
Well, no, those people that were participating in looting and rioting in 2020 were condemned by the Democratic Party en masse, right? The people on January 6th that were invading the Capitol are going to get a pardon from Donald Trump. He called them patriots, people who love the country.
Okay.
Yeah. So the Democrats don't embrace people that do those things. We say that, if you are looting and rioting and destroying buildings for any cause, you should face legal consequence. Whereas Donald Trump says, well, if you're doing it for me, then I'll give you a pardon and I think you're a patriot. So if you're
peacefully, that's what was said.
If you say peacefully once, that doesn't negate all of the other inflammatory language that you've used. It doesn't negate the fact that you brought everybody to DC for January 6th, told people that it will be wild. And it doesn't negate the fact that he directed them to the Capitol knowing that they're armed, knowing that they wanted to commit violence.
All right. Well, I guess no one's going to get anywhere with January 6th. Everybody has their own opinions. My question for you is, and this is respect. I'm just asking. Mm-hmm. I believe a lot of Democratic sources are invalid, and I'm sure you believe some sources are invalid. So how do we know who's correct?
Who's correct?
Yeah. Which sources are correct?
I mean, I think that there are really some great news agencies out there. Like I think that Reuters, BBC, the Associated Press, I think the New York Times, even though Trump says they're fake for some reason, all these organizations are really great. I think NBC is great. I think that like CNN, there's a difference between like written and like TV. TV, obviously, I'd say has a more left wing bias for sure. It doesn't mean that they're wrong. Doesn't mean that they're incorrect. But CNN written, in terms of what they cover, is great. They're also really great on foreign policy. They have like reporters all around the world, so it's fantastic. So I think there's a lot of reliable news agencies out there. But my concern is that people are now increasingly getting their information from social media, which is not inherently bad. But there are a lot of bad actors on social media. So
A lot can be misconstrued over social media. I will give you
yes,
that.
yes.
I know there are, like, for example, when I grew up in my household, it was Newsmax, and I know that's very right leaning. So I just don't know where to get full information from. I guess you could say I grew up with Newsmax, sometimes Fox lately, but like no CNN, none of that was ever.
So what I would do, what I would recommend to you is like diversifying your news. So what I do is I read CNN, but I also read Fox News. I read, news outlets from across the board to get a broad understanding. But it's also important to note that like on social media, a lot of these like right-wing people that you see on this app or like TikTok or other social media platforms, they have no method of verification. Whereas all these news agencies like MSNBC, for example, which everybody thinks is super left-wing, they have to like double, triple check their sources. They're not just putting out something out there because it's left-leaning. They have a rigorous fact-checking system in these agencies. So like the New York Times, I think is great. If you don't want CNN or MSNBC or NBC, that's fine. NPR, somebody in this chat says, Reuters, they're all very good.
Okay, yeah, and I voted for Trump for a number of reasons. Another one being, our health. RFK, I feel like he'll do. Before RFK came out in alliance with Trump, since he was more left wing, were you in support of him before
No.
you weren't?
No, because he's a lunatic on vaccines. He questions the efficacy and the necessity of vaccines. Absolutely not. No.
I mean, I understand vaccines. What about food-wise, though? How come a lot of what's in our food here are illegal in other places?
Well, that's also completely exaggerated by people like RFK Jr. So, for example, a lot of RFK Jr. fans, Trump supporters generally, say something like red dye 40 is illegal in Europe. You can't use it in food. It's legal here in the United States, except red dye 40 is just classified under another name in Europe and used in food all the time. So there is certain things that are banned in Europe, but not in the United States. And like, if you want to look at those things, investigate them further, I have no problem with science. I have no problem with studying these things. But the idea that like RFK Jr., a guy who had a literal worm eat his brain and he placed a bear carcass in Central Park and sawed off the head of a whale and put it in the back of his car and drove it home. And then when he was asked about sexual assault allegations against him, he said, "I'm no church boy." And he's anti-vax, which is like the opposite of being pro-health. If you think that this guy is somehow going to clean up America's health system, and he's not a doctor, has never studied medicine, never worked in medicine, then I think you are crazy.
Okay, I understand. My fiance is also here. Is it okay if he weighs in for a second?
Absolutely.
Hey, Barry. I'm not as much on the political aspect, but I'm more of the health and fitness person. I just want to say, like, I get my protein powders and everything. I get them actually from the UK because there's a lot of more health benefits as opposed to the stuff we would get here. There's a lot of things that I've noticed. They don't put all of what's in protein powders on labels. And this one company I get my protein from, and the same plug, it's just the company I get it from, My Protein. It's because they're very cheap, They fully transparent and everything. It's my question is, why is it that we're hiding things here, but over there, like there's full transparency in what's going in. You can research all the stuff that's going in. It's very good for you. It's like who should we trust then to tell us the truth about what we're eating and what we're consuming here?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know in your specific circumstance with like protein powders, so I can't speak to like the protein powders that you're using, but it's generally my understanding that that it's required to put all the ingredients on the bottle, but also alternatively, you can talk to like a nutritionist if you're interested in like, if you want to eat like the best things that are
recommended this company. That's what I
went. So you can do things like that, for example. And as I just said to your wife, I believe, I'm not opposed to science. Like I'm not if
Hell no,
you
I'm
know.
all for science.
Sure. So, but then you can't support RFK Jr. if you're for science. But if the idea is like, oh yeah, we want to study these things more and like make sure what we're putting in our food is okay, I have no problem with that. But I do have a problem with people like RFK Jr. who use this talking point to get into power and then like possibly put in a more extreme agenda, being the person kind of leading that charge.
Yeah. To me, for RFK, the only really thing I liked was him saying, about the food healthy. I don't really trust his whole thing on vaccines either. So, I'm kind of like, I'm going to keep an open mind to him,
I just hope he doesn't get confirmed. I mean, he should not run our health agencies,
Are we talking all vaccines he's against or just COVID?
Oh, no, he's taken objection to like childhood vaccines as well. And as you'll notice in the United States, you don't really see many people in iron lungs or having, red bumps on them from measles. And that's partially due to vaccine development and childhood vaccination and things like that. So the fact that he's even questioned that, in my mind, makes him completely unfit to run all of our health agencies.
I mean, I can understand that point. And then obviously the last thing I don't believe in abortion except for the 3 exceptions. That's another thing. And
Why?
Trump is going to make IVF more affordable. He's going to have insurances pay for it. And I think that's a great thing. We need more children.
Are you saying that so you can be pro-life for yourself? Are you saying that you just want to outlaw abortion altogether? Or are you saying that you personally wouldn't get one?
Well, I personally would never get one. But again, I don't think it should be legal after a certain amount of weeks. Except for 3 exceptions.
What about like up until 20 weeks? 20 weeks being viability, meaning that the fetus could exist outside of the mother's womb. Do you think that like 20 weeks would be a good compromise?
No.
You wouldn't be. So what kind of point are you putting it on?
I want to say 12.
12? Why 12? Just is it just like a
trimester? Yeah, I was born at 22 weeks. So, I mean, that's a little close to home.
viability?
Yeah.
So, I mean, so then you're pro-choice, is my understanding. So that you'd be okay with a woman getting an elective abortion up to 12 weeks, meaning that she's not assaulted and it's not a result of anything like that.
If it's just because of a mistake, I don't think that's okay at all.
Why?
I mean, you know what you're doing when you're partaking in an act. You know the risks that are coming along with it. Not every form of contraception is 100%. Everybody knows that, or everybody should know that. So you are taking a risk. And there are like 2 million hopeful parents waiting to adopt, and there are many abortions a year. You don't have to keep him or her.
Yeah, but if you're like, what gives you the authority to tell like a woman that, oh, the risk, so you should just have to go forward with pregnancy anyway? That's the problem. Like, why can't you have your own view on abortion and like practice that in your life? Nobody's going to stop you doing that. But then why impose that on other women? Because
if you're not ready to have a child, don't take those risks. Why would you?
Come on. Look, this is not a pragmatic.
Still.
It's not a pragmatic approach. We all know that people that are, older teenagers or in college or just young adults generally are going to engage in intercourse. People of all ages are going to engage in intercourse. It's just something that happens, and saying like, well, you shouldn't do it if you're not ready is just not realistic. So what the law should be, in my view, is that if you can do that, obviously you got to be responsible. You should be responsible. But if you have a mistake, no matter what the circumstances are, you should still have access to an abortion. And on your point that, the risks, think about anything else you do in life. When you get in a car, you understand that there's a risk that a 18-wheeler might strike you on the highway and kill you or badly injure you. Does that mean that if that happens, you consent to that outcome and that you should accept that it just happened because you knew the risk? No, absolutely not. There should be an ambulance that comes pick you up and heals you, because even though you know the risk, you still did it anyway, and you shouldn't just suffer the risk because something unlikely happened. That's the same thing with an abortion, that you understand the risk, that there is a possibility of this happening, but just because there's a risk doesn't mean you should be forced to have that possible consequence happen to you and go forward with it.
I mean, I understand that, but I mean, at the same time, it's a human life that's currently being made. Like when you're getting in a car and everything, you know how to be safe, and you know how to eliminate some risk factors. But at the end of the day, I just don't think it's okay.
But there are plenty of instances of which you think taking a human life is fine. So in the event of self-defense, if somebody's attacking you or entering your home and you shoot them, I'm sure you're okay with that. If a family wants to pull the plug on their brain dead patient, on their brain dead family member who's in the hospital, I'm sure you're okay with that. That's the taking of a life.
Their life. They already depending on how old they are, they were here. They lived their life. Something unfortunate happened to them.
But it's still life. If your whole premise is that, oh, it's life and life is sacred and should not be taken, then you'd be against both of those circumstances. But you're not. So then why, when it comes to like an abortion, you are?
Because there is a human life that is yet to make its way in the world. They have opportunities. They can grow up to be something great. Like, that's what I'm trying to say.
But I would say that even you recognize that like a fetus outside the womb is different than life inside the womb. Like intuitively you think that. For example, if you have the opportunity to save a conceived egg or an egg, a fertilized egg in a petri dish, something that happens with like IVF, if you could save two of those, or a fetus or a baby that's like 2 years old, you can only save one of the both. What would you do?
Between one in a petri dish or
two in a petri dish, two fertilized eggs in a petri dish versus a 2-year-old baby. If you had like, if there's a house fire, you could only save one. What would you do?
obviously the baby in the house, but I mean,
Right.
that is such an uncommon thing to happen.
Oh, for sure. I totally agree it's uncommon, but it's just a hypothetical. The point is that you see, and I think a lot of people, virtually everybody would agree with this, that a fetus outside the womb, like a baby, is more significant. The value there is more significant than that of a fetus inside the womb. You see that as second to life that's already been outside the womb. That's the point.
I just don't see the correlation in that because one, it's just such a weird example, no offense, but it's like, who will ever have to, obviously everyone's going to save what's already born, but at the same time.
But why do you say that? Why do you say something that's already born? Because if by your view, they're both life.
They are, yes.
Yeah. If your view, they're both life and thus they're equally valuable just because they're life, you wouldn't say, oh, it's obvious because it's the born baby. You wouldn't say that. But you recognize that born life that's already exited the mother versus life inside of the mother's womb is more valuable. And I would totally agree. I don't assign any value to a fetus before 20 weeks. I don't think it's valuable. If you want to have an abortion, I don't care. Personally.
I'm not as crazy as Charlie Kirk or anything like that, but I do have beliefs on it. Like I know he doesn't even believe in the 3 exceptions. I do, but at the same time, if you just, and people are saying, oh, people don't get abortions a lot of the time because they made a mistake. Like, no, that happens a lot.
But then I think that I always find I only agree with the 3 exceptions to be peculiar, because then my question is, why does a woman, just be clear, your 3 exceptions are like assault, incest, and life of the mother, right?
Yes.
So then on those first 2, why does a woman have to be violated in order to have access to an abortion?
I'm sorry.
You see,
what?
like, why does a woman have to be violated in order to have access to an abortion? Like, why must she be assaulted or have a family member attack her in order for her to access care that she wants to access? Doesn't that seem like crazy?
I mean, I can see what you're saying with that, but that's something unfortunate that happened to them. Mm-hmm. They shouldn't have to go through a pregnancy with something that caused her so much trauma. I believe with you on that one, but
don't you think that a girl that gets pregnant at like 15 or 16 would have trauma as a result of being forced to go through with a pregnancy when she's still in high school?
If she made that decision, I mean, that was her decision.
But if you're like, yeah, I want to make sure that people don't experience trauma, which I would agree, like you want to limit that, then why would you want to force somebody who's like 15 whose trauma is different than a woman who's been assaulted and got pregnant, 100%, but still trauma nonetheless. She has to get pulled out of school. She can't engage in normal activities. She becomes a mother at 15, has to go through all the processes of pregnancy.
She can give it up for adoption.
Well, you're still a mother no matter what,
but you don't have to, she doesn't have to raise the child. She doesn't have to do any of that. But I mean, again, that just came from her own actions, unfortunately.
But I mean, I won't go back to the example, but like there are plenty of things that happen from your own actions that you don't that you don't consent to, right? That you would prefer not to deal with if you have the opportunity to. So I just don't understand that, oh, well, it's her own actions, you know, she should be forced to go through with this if she did it. But I want to take a different approach just briefly. Maternal mortality has been going up in the United States for quite some time, especially after Roe v. Wade. And that's due since Roe v. Wade was overturned in Texas, maternal mortality has gone up like 56%. And it's one of the states with the most strict abortion laws in the country. So if we see this data going up, if we see more women dying as a result of pregnancy and being denied access to reproductive care, why would you want to go in the opposite direction of outlawing it more as opposed to making it more open for women?
Like I said, that's one of the 3 exceptions. If the mother's life is in danger, it should be fine at any point of the pregnancy.
What about Amber Nicole Thurman in Georgia? Are you familiar with her case?
Was that the one that had sepsis?
Yeah, so basically she had she went to North Carolina to take an abortion pill and have an abortion that's pill induced as opposed to like going into an OBGYN. She came back She came back to Georgia and she began to feel really ill. And so she went to a local hospital in Atlanta to get a procedure called D&C, which is just like scraping of the uterine lining because the entire abortion didn't. I don't know how vulgar I can be on TikTok, but essentially it didn't go to plan. There was still matter left in her uterus that needed to be expelled. And the law in Georgia was so vague that the doctors there, they couldn't operate, or they waited to operate around 20 hours because they were unsure if they could perform the procedure, because the procedure in that instance was outlawed over the summer, becoming a felony.
They were worried about their job.
Right. And they had to wait for it to get to a certain point in order for it to be deemed, life saving, right? And Amber Nicole Thurman died as a result. So the point there is that a lot of these Republican states are passing abortion laws that are incredibly vague, and there's no way to make them not vague. There's no way to make a law account for every single circumstance. So there will be women who suffer. There will be women who get sepsis when they don't need to. There will be women who die when they don't need to. So why not, knowing this and seeing cases like Amber Nicole Thurman, why don't we say, hey, let's make the procedure more open and allow women to get abortions if they need to?
And that's what I like.
Let's bring up Nurse Heather.
Sorry. No.
I'm going to bring up a nurse as well to talk about this more in depth because she is a nurse. But anyway, sorry, continue.
What I'm saying is, like, that's fine to open it more if the woman's life was in danger. Now, let me ask you this. How researched is the pill? I'm not too familiar with the pill that can help abortion or anything. How researched is that?
Well, perfect time to bring up Nurse Heather. So, Nurse Heather, what do you say to her on that?
Can I actually go backwards to the life of the mother thing? So
Sure.
What the issue is like, we know that we need to perform this procedure pretty early on, right? So like if a baby passes incomplete miscarriage, whatever, we know that we need to get all of the tissue inside the uterus evacuated, or within a few days, the mom will be in a life-threatening situation. So our preference is to do that before her life is in danger, because technically it is in danger. She's just not yet actively dying. So the issue is that the laws make it so that she actually has to be like very close to death, very, very, very sick. And her chances of surviving at that point are like exponentially lower than if we intervene when we first know that this needs to happen. So
can I address that when you're through?
Yeah.
Thank you. I'm actually an emergency department nurse, have been for 40 years, recently retired, and not once before or after the abortion ban, although I haven't worked since the abortion ban, has any doctor, practitioner refused to take care of retained products of conception to the point of, oh, we got to wait until you're dying. I just think that's an inflammatory statement and not true. Tell me one doctor that has ever done that you've ever worked for.
Well, personally, myself, not at all, because I'm Canadian, and here we don't have that issue. But that is why we're having issues with the maternal mortality rates in Texas specifically. That's what happened to Amber Nicole Thurman.
You've been in Texas? I said, you've been in Texas during that procedure? There is not a doctor I have met in 40 years that would ever do that, no matter what it was on the books about abortion. And to say that is disingenuous.
Well, I think it's a little bit interesting that you would say, like, you haven't worked since the Roe v. Wade is.
Yeah, but I got plenty of friends that still do. Got 35 doctors that are close friends that perform these procedures all the time in the emergency room as D&Es. And if there's products retained, they don't say, oh, wait a minute, let's wait till Thursday. They don't do that.
Okay, so what about all the cases where they do?
Well, again, those are what have been stated. I'm not sure how accurate they are. Because a story being told 3 times over 4 months by 2 different states, I don't think any 3 of us sitting here know what the truth is.
Have you read the ProPublica report on Amber Nicole Thurman?
No, I have not.
Yeah, so the reporting on that came from the board that was assembled in Georgia to evaluate cases like this. That board has now been disbanded by Governor Brian Kemp because of its findings. But that came directly from this board that investigated cases like Amber Nicole Thurman's. This is not just like he said, she said, and this doctor claimed this. This was an investigation.
This sounds like malpractice, though.
Yeah, it does sound like malpractice, yes. And trust me, a doctor would be more concerned with malpractice than going to jail over an anti-abortion law.
Really?
No.
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry. Really?
No, they would not. No, it's not. So when the laws say that the life of the mother has to be in jeopardy, they have to wait, right? They have to consult with the lawyers and all of that because they don't want to be charged and have their licenses revoked and go through, even if they know that they made the right choices and did perform the procedures, they could still be charged. And they're not going to do that. They're not going to get charged with medical malpractice because the laws are actually on their side, especially if they're going through the process of consulting ethics boards and the legal teams and all of that to find out if they can do these procedures. Everybody knows it needs to be done, but you have to, now there's all these hoops that have to be jumped through. And Amber Nicole Thurman is the only one that's coming to mind, the name. I know that there's more of them. But I'm curious what you would say are the reasons for the increase in maternal mortality if it isn't this.
Yo-Yo Binks, you're off TikTok Live, so we can't hear you right now. You have to come back to the app if you're still there. There you go. Now we can hear you.
Did you mute me?
No, if you go off the app, we can't hear you, so you have to stay on the app in order for us to
I was using a flashlight. My bad.
Oh, it's no problem. Go ahead.
Harry, when you get a moment, I literally just have 3 topics I'd like to.
Yeah, I'm happy to talk to you, but no problem. But Nurse Heather just asked you a question. If you want to repeat it, Nurse Heather.
I think that the maternal rate of complications has never been great in the U.S., and it's never been great for the people who are socioeconomically challenged. And it's something we need to work on. I don't think abortion has significantly increased that in any way, shape, or form, and that's my opinion. And I'm not trying to disagree with you. I'm not trying to prove you right or wrong. I'm just telling you that I have worked with literally hundreds of physicians in New York, New York City, Boston, Florida, Pennsylvania, and there's not one doctor that would ever refuse treatment. under those circumstances. So what the individual cases were, I'll claim ignorance. I don't know. I'm just telling you it's a little suspect. And I'd leave it at that.
Yeah, so maternal mortality in the United States as a whole is already fairly terrible. Personally, I blame that on your healthcare system. I think, of all of the developed nations, the US is the only one that hasn't figured out how to have a universal healthcare system. So I think that that's a big, big problem on its own. But what's happened is since Roe v. Wade overturned in Texas specifically, the maternal mortality rate rose 56% compared to 11% nationally, and now ranks 55th among the developed nations. So that statistic, that 56%, is attributed directly to the abortion bans.
I have no doubt that it is. And the old adage of figures don't lie, but liars do figure. And I think it's a political football that we need a lot of people, both Democrat and Republican, to stop the nonsense, sit down and figure out what is true, what is right, and how to fix it.
Do you think they're lying about the statistics?
No, I think they're biased. There's a difference.
But those come from the CDC. They're not.
I've worked with the CDC. And in fact, just before I retired, I was what I considered myself the Ebola queen out in Nebraska in their contamination site. And I'm telling you, I went against a few CDC options about doffing equipment because healthcare workers got Ebola because they didn't doff properly. That means taking off. And the CDC gave us almost daily updates of here's how you need to take your mask off. And I flatly said, I am not going to teach a colleague how to take a mask off when 10 times out of 10 times the mask flips